Hello there, people of the internet. I have a lot of really unusual stuff. And some of these things that I have, you don't really see them shot a lot because, like I said, they're kind of unusual. Like, for example, this right here. This is a Vetterli chambered in 10.4 millimeter. It's an old school black powder bolt action rifle. And I have to essentially hand load for this thing simply because, like I said, the ammo for it basically does not exist. And then we have other things like I got a Steyr 8890 right here, chambered in 8x50 Steyr, and that again is one that you don't see shot very often just because it's a little unusual. And then we got ones that are more common, like I got a 303 British rifle in that part of the pile right there, and 7.62 by 54R is still pretty gosh darn common nowadays, a little bit hard to find. Several 8mm Mauser rifles. There's some surplus that's on the market nowadays, but if you're getting new production, then it can be a little bit more difficult to find, just like all your other more oddball rifle calibers. And whenever I make videos talking about these things, I normally do it in the guise of my enjoyment as a collector, like me enjoying 303 British or 8mm Mauser or something like that. That is a hobby. And I'll get people that go into the comments below and they'll tell me, oh, you should not be wasting your money on that. You need to get something that is more practical. And normally they'll bring up something that is like a more available cartridge. And then whenever that topic arises, they normally start to lean towards like more availability and practicality with the platforms that you're running. Like 303 British through a Lee Enfield, yeah, it's a really good rifle, but in terms of the modern context of what you might need a practical rifle for, although yes, it could do the job, there are better things out there. And that's kind of what I wanted to discuss in this video. If you are getting yourself a rifle for purely practical purposes and you're not interested in collectability at all, then yeah, it would make sense to focus on what is available on the market. Like, for example, I got this right here. This is an AR. There is a tremendous amount of accessories and support for the AR platform, along with an overabundance and oversaturation of ammunition available on the market. I'd say most of your ARs are probably going to be chambered in 223/556. Not exactly the same cartridge, but for the sake of this particular argument, we're going to be using them interchangeably. Most people are going to be looking at 55 to 62 grain bullets just because that is the most available cartridge. That's the cheapest cartridge. You can buy that in bulk for a lot cheaper than you would be able to, say, buy, I don't know, 77 grain open tail or open or OTM bullets or something like that. The likelihood of you stockpiling a bunch of that is a lot lower than the likelihood of you stocking, say, 55 grain ball lead core full metal jackets, just because, like I said, they are significantly more available and significantly more abundant. And for practical purposes, this right here, although not all that good of a cartridge in the guise of comparing it to other cartridges, it doesn't do anything particularly well. It does everything fairly decently. So the 5.56 round from, say, a 16 to 20 inch barrel, that should be able to handle most of the problems that most people need a cartridge to be able to handle. In the event that you need more firepower, then I would recommend going to something like a 308, which is probably going to be your more abundant rifle cartridge out there on the market, probably followed by 30-06. I have, actually, right here, this is an Oviedo Mauser that's been rechambered for 7.62 NATO. It's technically 7.62 set move, but for all intents and purposes, we're just going to say 7.62 NATO because that's what I fire through this thing. That is a full power rifle cartridge, a 150 grain bullet moving at about 2,800 feet per second, give or take, depending on brand and ammunition type and whatnot and things like that. But for the most part, that's about what you're looking at. A 150 grain bullet moving about 2,800 feet per second. Full power rifle round, and you can find it absolutely everywhere. If you're looking for just a full power rifle round to do a job and you don't care about collectability, then by all means, the 308/7.62 NATO is a really good go-to. As a matter of fact, I'd say it's probably more abundant out there on the market than your 30-06. It's going to be more available, and it's definitely going to be cheaper just because it is a mass surplus round. Back in the day, you could probably get 30-06 for cheaper, but the 30-06 surplus is pretty much dried up. It's not completely gone, but it's pretty much dried up. Versus something like 7.62 NATO, which is still made en masse and used en masse by not just United States forces, but military forces all over the world. And so I don't think we'll ever see 7.62 NATO dry up within our lifetime. So from a practicality standpoint, that's a widely available full power cartridge. The 5.56, that's a widely available intermediate caliber cartridge. You can go out and get yourself, say, magazines for your AR really cheaply and really abundantly, as opposed to, like, I don't know, do I have anything that has intermittent, or that's not the word I'm looking for, something that has proprietary mags. This right here is a 7.5 Swiss, and it does have external magazines. Or, well, this is not 7.5 Swiss, 7.5 by 55, this is 7.5 by 53.5, and that's a topic for another video. I just bring that up because somebody's going to bring that up in the comments down below. But the external mags for something like this right here, I could go out and get myself like 10 mags for this thing, but it's going to be overly expensive, and sourcing magazines for this thing would be an absolute nightmare, as opposed to just going out and buying myself, say, a 10-pack of AR mags, just your standard Stanag mags. If I were to go out and get myself a 10-pack of, like, I think that these are aluminum mags, I'm willing to bet that I could probably find them for like $8 a piece. So again, widely available all over the place, not overly expensive, really good option. There's various optics out there, sights out there. You can go out and get yourself whatever type of stock it is that you want. Various hand guards, various barrels, twist rates, all sorts of stuff. Whatever it is that you want to do to set up your AR, it's available, and that's just what is available right now on the market. Same thing goes with handgun calibers. Actually, I got this right here. This is, for all intents and purposes, a Beretta 92 clone. It is this particular one holds 15 rounds. It can hold the mags that hold 17 rounds, but it's a 92S. It is a single action, double action system that is very predominant here in the United States because it was our M9 service pistol for a very long time. It's got a decocker on it. This has already been checked for clear in case anybody is concerned about that. But the big thing with these 92S clones is that there is a lot of stuff out there on the market for them. As a matter of fact, this particular one came with a spare magazine, or came with its original magazine. But guess what? I can get a spare magazine by just using a cheap surplus Beretta 92 mag that was, I don't know, it might be an M9 mag. As a matter of fact, it was. Look, there's our stocking number right there, 71. So cheapo surplus magazines will also work for this thing. Is this one not going to lock open? Okay, hold on. This particular mag looks a little on the messed up side, but that's all right. I got just piles of these 92 mags. This one says stock number 28 on it. So put this one in. Yeah, that one right there works just fine. That's one of the downsides of surplus things. You might get one that's a little bent up, beat up, and whatnot, but bottom line is these cheap magazines that are widely available will run in this handgun. I'm willing to bet that even this one right here that doesn't really lock the slide open would probably still work. Oh, look at that. It locked the slide open that time. I'm willing to bet that this one right here would probably still work. Might not lock the slide open whenever you're out of ammunition, but that's such a minor issue as long as it feeds reliably. But again, widely available, very abundant. If you have yourself, I don't know, a Glock, there's a tremendous amount of support for stuff out there on the market for Glocks. It is just Glock magazines are widely available, Glock triggers, Glock sights, Glock accessories of all sort. And if you're looking for a handgun specifically for practical purposes, you really can't go wrong with something like that. So if it's available and widely available, then dude, by all means, absolutely go ahead and go for it. I think that the Glock 19 and 17 are probably going to be your best options. The 43X is also a really, really good option. But why I say that is because those particular handguns can run a variety of magazines. Like, for example, your Glock 19 has a smaller frame than your 17. And so as a result of that, because the 17 mag is a little bit longer, it can actually run in that frame of that 19. Since the 19 is shorter, it won't be able to run in that 17 just because of the length of the magazine. It won't be able to fit all the way up inside the magazine well. But the compatibility of those magazines, you can go out and get yourself like, I don't know, insert your choice of double stacked 9mm really short frame Glock here, and you'll be able to run just a variety of different magazines that you come across just because it's a Glock, and all these Glock magazines for the most part are interchangeable, and there's a tremendous number of companies out there making clones of these magazines and clones of these guns and all sorts of stuff. As a matter of fact, I got one of those literally sitting right here. This one right here is a Smith & Wesson SW40VE. Go ahead and show clear on this thing. And for all intents and purposes, this right here is a Glock. I don't know if it's interchangeable with Glock mags. I haven't actually tried that, but this is so similar that Glock actually sued them back in the day, and they won that lawsuit. This right here is chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson, and I got that just because 40 Smith & Wesson is a little cheap and easy to find on the market right now because it's being surplused by a bunch of different law enforcement agencies. But again, widely available stuff. It's good for practical purposes. It's not like the rest of the things that I do. Like this stuff right here, for the most part, is a hobby. A lot of it can be fielded for like emergency purposes, but if I have to give somebody my 10.4 Vetterli along with some hand-loaded ammunition, and I'm like, hey, take this, go be sentry over there and guard that road, and if we hear gunfire, we're gonna come running. If it gets to that point, then dude, we are in a really bad situation. I got just much better options for a practical purpose. I'd give someone like my SKS right there before I'd ever give them something like that. So again, most of this stuff is just a hobby. It's not based off of practicality purposes. I got my stuff for being practical. Trust me, I got plenty of stuff for practicality purposes. If it gets to the point where I'm using the hobby stuff for practicality, then things have gotten really, really, really bad. So yeah, for practicality, dude, use what's available, use what's cheap, get as much as you can for as cheaply as possible. I recommend going with 9mm and some sort of platforms where you can get accessories and mags real cheap. I recommend going with 223. Again, some sort of platform where you can get mags and accessories really, really cheap. Here in the US, that's going to be your AR. And I recommend going with 308. Again, something where you can get mags and accessories really cheap. The AR-10, I think that all AR-10 mags are basically the same for your 308. The parts are a little bit different because there's no mil-spec stuff going on with the AR-10, so there is some things that you got to pay attention to in terms of accessories and accessibility with that particular platform, but that's probably beyond the scope of this particular video. Or if you want to go with like some of the classics, like some sort of G3 style rifle, or an FAL, or a M1A, if that's your cup of tea, then by all means go ahead and go for it. But the point is, those right there, I'm willing to bet that magazines are probably going to be very available for those in comparison to what's a good example. I got a buddy of mine, he had a custom-built FG42 made for him, like those old German paratroop guns that have the magazine on the side. He's got himself one of those custom-made for him specifically in 308. And the magazines for that are 110% proprietary, and finding mags for that would just be literally impossible in a bad situation. So that would be a hobby gun as opposed to a practicality gun like, say, an AR-10 in 308. So you do got to pay attention to things like that, but yeah, use what's available. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Gary. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.